Pentagon says a deadly shooting that nearly involved the U.S. top commander in Afghanistan will not change American resolve. NATO Commander General Scott Miller had just left a meeting at the provincial governor's compound in Kandahar when the shooting began. The gunman, reportedly dressed as a member of the Afghan security forces, struck and killed General Abdul Razik, the police chief of Kandahar. The Pentagon says the incident makes the U.S. military more determined than ever in its strategy. The Taliban has claimed responsibility for this. Let's bring in Mark Sedra. He is a political science professor at the University of Waterloo, Ontario, and he joins us now to talk some more about this. Mark, what do we know about the Kandahar police chief?
Well, he was revered within the Afghan government and among those in southern Afghanistan because he was seen as a bulwark against Taliban expansionism, one of the fiercest fighters that the government had to resist the continued encroachment of the Taliban insurgency. At the same time, he was heavily criticized by Western humanitarian and human rights groups because of allegations of torture and really brutal treatment of detainees and really for having a reputation of being very brutal in how he approached his job as police chief. So certainly, mixed impressions. He's somebody who was one of the most effective military figures and police figures in terms of resisting the Taliban, but also someone with a mixed past.
So was it clear that he was a target here, or was the U.S. commander a target, or perhaps both?
Well, I think probably both. Clearly, the U.S. commander would have been, I think, the top target. That would have really been a coup for the Taliban. But nonetheless, killing who is, for all intents and purposes, the most important security figure in southern Afghanistan at such a key time. There's a parliamentary election coming up this weekend. The Taliban had pledged to disrupt this election with massive attacks. This is going to keep Afghans away from the polls. This is going to destabilize a government that's already on its back foot and has had severe political turmoil. So this is a real blow to stability overall in Afghanistan. And
what does it say about the security team protecting these people?
Yeah, well, there's been a whole raft of insider attacks. So these are attacks where members of security details, some of them have just been members of the security forces, have turned their guns on their own people. There hasn't been, in the 17 years of the intervention in Afghanistan, there hasn't been an insider attack at this high a level that have targeted such high-level figures and got so close to actually killing or severely injuring a high-ranking U.S. commander, the commander of all forces, NATO and U.S. forces in Afghanistan. So this is a real blow to the Afghan government and to the international intervention.
What are officials in Afghanistan saying about the election moving forward?
Well, I think people are very concerned. Already the Taliban was telling Afghans, don't come out to the polls. We are going to target these elections. Let's remember that in the past, the Afghan government could rely on large numbers of international security forces to safeguard the election process. Now there are far fewer international troops on the ground. So this is primarily an Afghan operation, and the Afghan security forces haven't shown that they're up to the job. So I think there has to be a lot of concern in Kabul and internationally among the key donors who have been involved in Afghanistan, whether this is going to turn out to be, a catastrophe on election day. So I think the real worry is that if Afghans don't come out to vote, that this delegitimizes the political process and throws Afghanistan into further turmoil.
Mark Sedra, I do have to leave it there, but thank you for joining us on the program tonight.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.